Um, all right. Well, folks, I am Sean Hale with Nonprofit CFOs, and I'm thrilled to be here with my colleague, Penny Armbruster of 1610 Consulting. And the other day, she was telling me a story, and I thought, I really need to get this story to everybody else. It's kind of if you didn't believe it coming from me, she has lived something very similar when it comes to not just tightening up your belt all the time when in the nonprofit back office. And so, Penny, on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, you shared a nonprofit experience that you had about how investing in technology can more than pay for itself. And so, to get us started, will you mind just painting a picture of the technology and the staffing situation at this organization that you found when you got started?
Sure. Can I say it was a nonprofit, it was a church. So those are
Okay.
nonprofits. They
Yeah.
generally operate like nonprofits in most respects, except for the fact that they don't get government funding. We, you know, we were inching along on, I'm going to date myself. This was a long time ago, back when we used to build our own computers. So we had a guy, and this is how a lot of organizations do. They have a guy that knows about computers. So we had a guy, everybody knows that guy, and he built a whole lot of computers for the church to use. I took over the church finances and noticed that we are just consistently fixing computers. And I think what really was the what do you say, the nail that struck the whatever, um was the media department. So this was a
Oh,
long time ago. And not, I mean, I'm just dating myself. It was a few years ago, and I noticed that they were having to render. So for those of you guys that are production, you have to render and export. And they were rendering video files that would take 8 to 10 hours to render.
oh dear.
So your computer is inactive during that time. You can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So they had been asking about uh, equipment and being told there was no budget for it.
And we have a guy. He's the
We have
best.
a guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But add up the amount of money that we were spending on that guy to come and fix the computers.
Hmm.
And truth be told, Sean, we didn't have a budget at all. There was nothing in writing. There was nothing written down. There was no budget existing.
Oh,
And
like the church
so
did not have a budget at all. That wasn't is it
it
was
was,
wasn't just
it
that there wasn't a
was
tech budget. There's no
right.
budget at
It
all.
was no budget at all. The thing is there was two people that were making the decisions for all the departments.
Oh
And so we had
boy.
a couple of layers of problems. Maybe somebody can appreciate this. And I'm sure that you've never seen this because I'm sure that everybody you've worked with has a budget. But we had two people that had no technological experience. They knew nothing about the media department, deciding the media department's what they spend on technology. And
Wow.
so, what up until that moment, what had happened was they had to ask. So the media director had to come and ask, "Can I get a new computer?" And he had to make a slideshow presentation of why he needed a new computer. Okay, so
Kind of like,
add up,
mommy, daddy, can I have money to like buy shoes for school, please?
yeah, and plus add up the time and the effort spent. You're doing a sales presentation internally to get money to do your job.
Yeah.
Like, how does that doesn't even make sense. And yet there's still churches and there's still nonprofit organizations that run like that. And so for number one, for that media director, they're not going to come and ask for everything that they need because they feel like, just like you said, like a little kid coming to mom and dad. So number one, they're going to be back there band-aiding things when there's actually money in the bank, but they don't know because, like, our kids don't know, they don't know what's in the bank. And
Yeah.
so when I came into that position, that was the first thing we did was we enacted budgets. I said, I don't want to sign every check. I don't want to approve. I don't know I don't know how many rolls of toilet paper we need or diapers are needed in the nursery. I want to give you guys. So the first thing we did was enact budgets and gave them the power to make the decisions themselves,
You treated them like adults who
like
could be
adults.
responsible with reasonable amounts of money.
Yeah. One of the guys, it was hilarious. I gave him I gave them all credit cards and I was like, here's your
Huh?
credit card. Here's your limit. Here's your budget. Here's the rules. I think back then we had Expensify, so you had to turn in receipts, all that
Hmm.
stuff. Like we did it with a process. This is not without a process. A budget has to be enacted with a process, right? But he came to me the first week and he's like, I need toilet paper. It was the business, the building. And I was like, go buy you some toilet paper. He's like, just like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care about the toilet
Yeah,
paper.
you're a grown man.
As a matter of fact, please don't ever talk to me about toilet paper ever again.
Yeah.
And what
Don't blow your whole budget on the toilet paper, right? But you know that you're an adult, right? Pretend that you're gonna have to use
I know
this
this
money for
doesn't
the next
shock
12 months.
you, Sean, but I think it shocked the leadership
I bet.
that they saw that those department leaders, um, they spent that money most responsibly. And those department leaders were shocked that they had more money than they thought they would get. And it was less than we were actually spending before then, anyways. But it was
Hmm.
them making the decisions and prioritizing what needed to be spent,
Yeah.
not the feelings of somebody in the finance office,
Yeah.
what
So
I
maybe at
felt
the
was
end,
important.
yeah. So maybe at the end of the year, the facilities guy, if he'd been kind of careful with his money, he could like go crazy and get Charmin in December for everybody. Like we've earned the really good toilet paper.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a church bonus.
Yeah. And at his discretion, right? He'd been careful with his resources, stewarded them first 11 months of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
year.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was such an amazing transformation. So then we started looking at equipment and noticing, and they started, now that wasn't in there, the equipment spend wasn't in their monthly budget.
Hmm.
We had to work that in because we weren't at a place where we could just hand everybody that capital spending at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had to work that in, but the more that we noticed, like these guys are spending, so they would set something to render and then they would go home. And many times, because this was a PC that had been built like together by the guy, remember the guy,
Yeah.
they would come back and it had errored out. And so they had to start all over. And so then they had to like restart it every day or reinstall the software. They were reinstalling the OS on a regular basis.
What?
And yeah, and most everybody doesn't
Oh my
understand
gosh.
that. I just live with a
It's a
creative, so I know what these
massive
words mean.
amount of time to reinstall an OS.
Yes. And they had to do it all the
Oh
time.
my gosh.
So on top of that, now let's talk about volunteers. Can just any volunteer come and sit at that computer? No. We couldn't use volunteers for anything. We had like two volunteers in that department because it was so difficult to
Mhm.
run. And so it just became and so we started looking at like we have to change our technology spend philosophy and really, really look at that. And it was, there was 20 employees, 20, 25 employees. I don't know, remember. But so we were looking at across the organization, but where we saw the worst efficiency was in that media department because they needed the technology the most. And
Yeah.
leadership was consistently frustrated at what was coming out of there because they weren't getting enough. So they wanted higher quality videos, higher quality graphics. They wanted more, more, more. And as the organization grew, obviously those needs are there. And so then that department's saying, we can't do that. We need another person. And so that's really where it comes to a head. And you have to look at it and say, do we actually need another person or do we need another computer?
Yeah. Do we need
Because,
another $40,000 a year employee or do we need a $1,000 computer?
right, right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so we decided let's try the computer first. And I think that's such a that's such a wise thing to do whenever you're tempted to feel like we need to hire, is not just to fill it, not just to create a position necessarily when you feel that urge, when you feel that angst, because it just feels like everything's overwhelming. But ask yourself, is there other ways that we could meet this need without hiring, without adding another seat to the payroll? Not that another seat is bad, but we just want to make sure that we do that in a planned way. And so for us, that technology spend was like, we're gonna invest in computers. Now back then, we had to make the switch from PC to Apple.
Okay.
And Apple now, that's normal. Everybody is like, yeah, of course, if you're going to be doing any kind of video editing or graphics design, you're going to have an Apple. But back then, or a Mac, we're saying Mac now. But back then it wasn't, all the way known. We went ahead and made that switch. So we went ahead and decided to switch everybody in the whole entire building so that we were a completely Mac based operation. But we took
Hmm.
into consideration all the money that we were spending. And at that size, you don't have an IT department. And
Right.
so any
You have a guy, right?
you have a guy, and that guy didn't, that was not his job. He
Yeah, like he's
just,
volunteering, coming in, and
yep,
computer
yep,
breaks on Tuesday, and oh, I got time after work on Thursday.
yeah. But in the meantime, we're still paying the staff to do a job, and we're waiting
Yeah.
on that. And so when you really start to put that into perspective, it's ridiculous. Like it's just ridiculous. And so we actually did the numbers and added up what we were paying in IT support to come and fix things and patch things, and figured out, you know what, we can take that monthly spend and put it toward, at the time we decided we're going to lease. And sometimes, and I love leasing equipment because in 2 or 3 years they're no good anyways, so you might as well just plan for that monthly expense.
Hmm.
um I
Yeah.
might ruffle some feathers there. I know there's some organizations that feel like you have to pay cash for everything, and I think that that's not true when you're talking about capital spend.
Yeah.
You can weigh in there, Sean.
Crunch. It's a crunch the numbers thing, right? On
Yeah.
some things it makes more sense than others. No, one that I've certainly been a big believer on for that is with like photocopiers, right?
Oh yeah.
Last thing I would want to do is own a photocopier, right? Because they break down all the time. You don't have the expertise in house to fix it and maintain it. And so when you lease a photocopier from a good company, right, you always have to vet them. But like, yeah, they're highly incentivized to make sure that thing is always running because they're charging you by the copy. And
Right.
so they get people out there lickety split when you tell them that it's down. It was
Yeah.
a wonderful change when we brought that into the church that I was serving. And not only that, but then at one point we realized,
But also
sometimes we
it
need two.
works.
And yeah, and we realized like, we need two photocopiers. And we reached out to them. They go, oh yeah, no problem. We'll just, bring it in. There's like no extra charge because,
Right.
like the second one was tiny, basic, so the volunteers could like run off a few things. And so they were like, yeah, they wanted us to keep on running up, the copy bill. And so they were thrilled to bring in another tiny little machine that the volunteers could go crazy on.
Yeah. 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 That's so good. So true.
Yeah.
So it just changed. It just changed. And that's what it changed financially, but it changed the atmosphere dramatically in the whole entire place, because all of a sudden people had computers that worked and they were able to do their job quickly.
Mm,
And I mean, it just changed the culture so much. And
yeah.
for
How
that,
did that?
and for that media department, it changed the volunteer culture dramatically, because
Mm,
all of a sudden now they set up technology to where I can put anybody on that computer to run this service and it works. And
okay.
so they actually they had like 75 volunteers in that one department with one full-time staff, one part-time. I think they had two full-time staff at
Wow.
the end there. So with 75 volunteers.
That's a lot of volunteers. And how did kind of for that department, just taking them as an example, what did like the finished products look like in terms of quality and quantity? Was leadership, were they able to see that there was an actual change in that area?
Yeah, we of course brought them in because I do not know enough. If I had bought them computers, it would have been the wrong ones. We of
Yeah.
course brought them in, sat down. We actually worked with a local IT company, and
Hmm.
we ended up signing a retainer situation with that IT company so that we would have a fixed monthly cost. So we had our lease and our monthly retainer for the IT company to have support for
Yeah.
all these new computers. And then that way we had a fixed monthly cost. We don't have any surprises, but we also have computers that our employees could work on. And so, yeah, from then on, they were able to produce things and get them ready actually on time for the service.
Oh,
There was times where there were videos that were supposed to play in a service,
yeah.
and they were rendering them all the way up until the service started and praying that the computer would finish so that that video could play during the service. And the service director had to make a decision, because the video hadn't been tested on the screens, whether we were going to play it live for the very first time in front of the whole entire crowd or not. And
Wow.
it's not uncommon to be doing, and that church looked so polished from the outside.
Hmm.
Excellence was taught from the pulpit. And when we did membership classes and volunteer classes, we use the term excellence all the time. And yet we were expecting our media department to run on a PC that had been built by a guy.
You were expecting them to just perform a few miracles, right?
Yeah.
Loaves and fishes, rendering a few videos, kind
They're
of
not
same thing,
Jesus.
right? Oh, yeah.
Jesus could do it, but we cannot.
Not the Son of God cannot
No.
snap their fingers and make these things happen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it gets exhausting as employees. I don't know why they stayed.
Yeah. And so you came in with your wild, crazy experiments that we're going to trust people, that we're going to spend money instead of hiding it under the mattress or wherever they were keeping it before.
Right.
And so they let you introduce these crazy changes. And then after a year, they say, all right, we're done with Penny's experiments. Like we got to go back to the old ways. What was
No.
the feeling after you'd had this wild
So,
experiment?
when I took over that position, they had been borrowing from payroll taxes to stay afloat. So there was often times when payroll taxes were not being paid on time because of cash flow issues.
Oh
Um,
my, that's serious.
it is serious. Within 12 months, though, we had it to where there was 3 months of operating expenses sitting in the bank.
What?
Hmm.
What? That's a pretty big change to build up a 3-month reserve.
Yeah,
And was
we
it
did it. Well,
okay? By spending the money smarter, by not having like to repair stuff all the time, and
I'll be honest.
more generosity in the collection plate
There was
because people actually
it's
had
a
like
lot of
this.
it's a lot of the above. It's not one thing. You know
Yeah,
this. It's
yeah.
not one thing that's going to change everything overnight. It's a huge it's a whole undertaking. So we did figure out there was one person in leadership that was misusing funds. Not to
Getting the
the
Charmin without authorization.
A little bit
Eh,
more than that.
okay.
And once we relieved her of her position, we were able to make some dramatic changes. So there was leaking going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think beyond the leak going on, we had a team that, just like those little kids, they were not being communicated to. They felt the pressures financially. And when your team is not being told or communicated to what it is, then they're going to imagine the worst possible thing in their mind.
Hmm.
And it kills morale because they think, I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow, let alone next Friday when my paycheck is due. And that's when we brought them in and started making the budgets. I mean, Sean, I gave them tiny budgets to start with. I was like, because I mean, when I took over, we were borrowing payroll tax. So
Yeah.
I gave them tiny budgets to start with, tiny credit cards. And as that year passed, we were able to loosen that quite dramatically. But by bringing them in to that conversation, everything changed because now they own it.
Mm,
And then I think that something's released supernaturally when that happens because now you're stewarding it correctly. And
mhm,
we got rid of the person misusing. We put accountability into practice. We put in dual
mhm.
control in every single level of everything. I no longer counted offerings ever.
Good.
And so we did those things that build that foundation, and that does increase generosity. Whether you're telling people necessarily, they know. I think there's something that happens supernaturally. They know it's being handled or not handled. And I think that there was a feeling of that it was not being handled correctly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
smart people don't give to dying organizations.
Yeah. And so there's a culture change also. I think I'm hearing that you brought in trust, but trust with accountability. It wasn't just willy-nilly, like, yeah, anytime you need money, just go grab money out of the bucket in the back
No.
room and just take what you need, right? Just grab all the cash you need. Don't worry about bringing back receipts. There's trust and accountability.
I'm laughing because I've
Staff,
heard this because we know the stories. Me and you know the
oh
stories.
yeah,
It
yeah,
happens.
no, it's and
No.
there's some people on the board who like fear the worst, right? Like, well, gosh, we couldn't possibly let an employee have a credit card, for goodness sake. But no, like you hire decent people, you have good trust, but
Yes.
you have the accountability, and you follow up if they're behaving inappropriately. But
Right.
most people are going to do the right thing
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
And every so often, some of them will just stumble, and you follow up. If it's a stumble, you follow up one way. If
Yeah.
they are doing things grossly inappropriately, there's a different kind of follow up, and you know that.
Right. That's right.
Um, well, that's terrific, and that
But if
yes,
you
I
had
think
left it the other way, you never would have known that about that person's character.
yeah, yeah.
I want to know that about their character.
Oh yeah, no, I think having the trust is such a big thing, and I've lived in organizations where they were low trust and they were high trust, and
Mm-hmm.
the atmosphere is different. The kind of people that you're able to attract and retain is different. The experience that you have, whether it's as an employee or a volunteer, as a member, as a part of volunteer leadership, those are all very different experiences. That's I'm
Yeah.
sure there are a bunch of stories we could dig into further, maybe on a different call about the, because I'm sure it was not easy to go in and build a culture of trust. That usually doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight.
No. No.
Well, terrific. Penny, thank you so
And
much
at the
for
time, I
for
was, Googling everything. I didn't know what I was doing. I remember I thought, I don't think this is the way it's supposed to go. And so I started that's when it started this career for me, like digging in and figuring out, like, I don't think this is how it's supposed to go. It's not
Oh
supposed to
my
feel like
gosh.
this. So yeah, I even
You,
I gave volunteers credit cards. That I had a volunteer that ran the coffee shop, and she was
hmm
wonderful. She had to go get milk every week. Well, I don't want to give her a check every week to go get milk. I gave her a credit card to go get milk. I think
and
she
it
had a
can,
$1,000 credit limit a month,
yeah,
but enabled somebody to do something that we didn't have to hire a person for, but a volunteer was perfectly happy to do it.
yeah,
Enabled.
yeah. I saved a lot of money, right? By
Yeah.
and could have held on to that person as a volunteer a lot longer. A lot of them will not put up with being treated like a child.
No.
Some
Yeah.
will, but a lot of them, like, really, if you're gonna treat me this way, and like, yeah, I'll go and just do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So true.
okay, I love this story. I wasn't expecting that it would have a big trust angle with it as well. I thought we were just going to talk about how
Technology.
invest in technology and it'll pay for itself. But this other angle is so powerful, I think, and so valuable. And so often these things do go hand in hand. When an organization
Yeah.
is feeling highly risk averse around any kind of expense, very often there are other kinds of messages being sent about trust. And it might even be totally inadvertent on part of the leaders, right? They might not even know that the staff and the volunteers feel like they're being treated like little children,
Yeah.
because sometimes leaders just like this is the household I grew up in, or like I had this experience when I was 25 and I like ran up all this credit card debt. And so I like no more credit cards. And I couldn't
Right.
possibly have anybody in my organization that I'm responsible for have credit cards because I screwed it up. And, that's like just, it's understandable that they have that trauma that they're bringing with
Hmm.
them. But that's really amazing and wonderful that you were able to help them get to the other side of that and make choices that allowed the organization to become healthier and
Yeah.
allowed it to fulfill its mission a whole lot better and without actually spending more money. I think people were spending less money and doing a better job on mission delivery
Yeah.
by making some choices differently around money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
That's
you hit it on
wonderful.
the head. Just thinking that somehow the financial department is siloed is just incorrect. We all bring our
Hmm.
life experiences, we all bring our past. And sometimes as leaders, we have to step back and ask, like, why do I feel so strongly about this one point? And there's something that happened somewhere in our past that made us feel so strongly about that one point. And like if it's a credit card trauma, um, then set up those controls. Make sure
Hmm.
it can't happen again. The
Yeah,
accountability in those controls make sure that that can't happen again.
yeah. That's yeah. When you trust people to do the right thing, have appropriate accountability on the back end, and so many wonderful things are going to happen. If you're obsessed with trying to make sure nothing bad ever happens, you're also guaranteeing that nothing good's ever going to happen.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Penny, for those folks who liked hearing what you had to say and are thinking, gosh, this Penny's really interesting and like to know more about her, like to know more about what she does, where would they go to get more information about you and about the consulting that you do?
I would love to connect with them on LinkedIn. That's where
Okay.
I'm sharing most of my stuff. And you can connect with me all the other ways, but LinkedIn is the best way.
Okay. So go there and there are how many Penny Armbrusters are there on LinkedIn?
I don't think there's any.
You're the only
I
one,
mean,
like figure.
it's linkedin.com/Penny Armbruster. So I guess I
Okay.
have, yeah, I guess I have the real estate.
Terrific. Terrific.
But I
Well,
have my picture. You'll see the curls.
there we go. There we go. You're one of a kind. They will
Yeah.
not mistake you for any other Penny Armbrusters out there.
Yeah.
And great. Thank you very
Thanks,
much. It's been a,
Sean.
a lovely chat, and I've learned a whole lot more than I expected to.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.